Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy, invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy, building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want. Episode 46. Hi everyone, welcome back to Mighty Married Moms. We just completed a fantastic conversation with Dr. Bryan Post of the Post Institute, and he talked to us all about how love takes over fear, or love replaces fear, or how to get from fear to love, and how love is really the underlying remedy for all of your problems with your kids or your spouse, for that matter. Let's any kind of relationships for people that are love to you. So, what are a couple of the takeaways that you guys had from our conversation?
I know we know that sounds very simplistic.
Yeah,
of course, love is the answer, right? Yeah. All you need is love. And as he said, some of his work that he's put together, he said, is so simple that people have a hard time with it because your brain wants to complicate everything.
That's true.
Which is very true.
And it's specific. You've read the book, Debbie, so the stress model is the thing that he talked about. His theoretical stress model and how.
Yeah, I can almost repeat it, all of it. It's the stress model that he came up with is that all behavior stems from a state of stress, and in between the stress and the behavior is the presence of a primary emotion, and there are only two primary emotions: love and fear. And if you want to eliminate the stress and diminish the behavior, you focus on love, is essentially what the stress model says.
Love-based parenting,
yes,
as he called it.
Yes.
Love and compassion. And he made it really, right at the end we just talked about what that actually looked like in a particular instance, in the instance of lying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he did a really great job, and it was so opposite of the way that I've ever been treated when I've lied. The 3 times that's happened in my entire life.
3, yes.
The only 3. Or the way that I would do it with a child in my life. Mm-hmm. Like somebody who's standing there. I didn't have any cookies, and they're covered with cookie crumbs.
Right.
You're like, it becomes about the lie, and it becomes a back and forth about how dare you and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then it becomes about you.
Right.
It's how dare you lie to me like that. Then it's all about me. It's not about the fear that the child is having. What it's talking about is my fear.
Right, and he put that in the book. I was reading it a little bit in between, and he talks about when a child tells a lie, it comes from a place of sheer terror. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true. The lesser of two evils. I did not have the cookies, because if I tell her I had the cookies, I'm dead. It's over. I'm gone. I'm out of here. Uh-huh. And he talks. His whole experience is out of adoption, and that fear of being abandoned yet again, given up again. So there's maybe lying is more prevalent in it. I don't know. I haven't read, but anybody that's lying, it's because it's coming from a place of fear that if I actually cop to this or tell the truth, the outcome or the next steps are going to be dire, and I won't be able to stand it. So I might as well just try to cover up the mess.
Totally fear.
Yeah.
Totally fear.
And so I thought it was a really interesting thing. He said, ignore the lie, but not the child.
Right.
So it feels like ignore the lie. Wow. So you think that a teaching moment would be, you shouldn't be lying about the cookie because you have crumbs on your face and I clearly can see it, and this is and give them sort of a lesson that way, which, as Debbie said, would be more about you than about them, or not that you don't want them to know that lying is not good, but you need to first address why they're lying.
Right.
If you can't address why they're lying, then you can never address the lie. Mm-hmm. So his approach was to talk to your child and say, when you lie, it makes me feel sad or me feel afraid that you don't feel that you can trust me.
Right.
And that makes me feel sad. And then he said, and then let it go for a little while, because they're thinking which lie, like when you lie, like sort of not talking about the cookies and just talking about lying in general. And I make my mom feel bad or my dad feel bad. That's a whole new thing to start thinking about. If the stress just feels calming, already. Yeah. And he said, and then walk away. don't continue for a little while. Let your child calm down, because when they're in that much stress, they feel they need to lie. They're really, really afraid of what the end result is going to be. So let them calm down for a little bit before you talk a little bit more about it and what their fear might be.
And the reason mom or dad is feeling bad is not because they don't like being lied to. It's because they're saying that mom or dad is conveying to this person, how is it that I haven't set up our family dynamic or our home in such a way that you feel like you can tell me anything?
Right.
How did that escape our, how does it make, how did I not notice that you don't feel safe enough to say, yeah, I had a cookie?
Yeah. So in other places, Bryan tells the story of Gandhi's grandson, and I probably won't tell it quite as well as he does, but the gist of the story is Gandhi's grandson went to pick up Gandhi at the airport, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, he was late. And Gandhi was wondering where his grandson was, so he called somebody and found out. His grandson finally showed up, and Gandhi said to him, "So, son, why are you late?" And the grandson lied to Gandhi. He lied to Gandhi. And
not a good idea.
At which point, as the grandson tells the story, huge tears started to come out of Gandhi's eyes. And he basically said to his grandson something along the lines of, "I am so very sorry that I have not created the kind of relationship where you feel that you can be honest and truthful with me. As a penance for myself, I'm going to walk home." And the grandson followed Gandhi in the car at about 4 or 5 miles an hour, probably less, for like 25 miles. Gandhi would not get in the car because he felt so badly that his grandson felt compelled to lie to him, that this was like his penance for himself.
About not creating the kind of relationship
Right.
that this kid could feel like, you know what, I forgot the time, or I was with my girlfriend.
So the rest of the grandson's story is, I never lied to grandfather again. Because and so, I mean, that's an amazing story. How else can we take a look at this? I'm thinking of teenagers. Okay, so we're talking about eating the cookie when they're not supposed to eat the cookie. That's small fry, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we've got a teenager who was supposed to be home at a certain time and comes home an hour late, and the parent is sitting there worried. And instead of freaking out when the kid walks in, the way to handle it is to say, "I'm sorry that you were late. We'll have to talk about this tomorrow. I'm glad that you're home safe." None of this confrontation, none of this conflict in the moment. It's not, "Where were you? I've been waiting for you for hours. Why didn't you call?" None of this stuff. And the idea is you create an environment where the next morning, when everybody's calm, and as Bryan points out, the amygdala is not freaking out, you have an opportunity to sit down and say, "Okay, so let's talk about curfew. It didn't work last night. Let's figure out what didn't work." And if you create that kind of environment, you're not going to get a kid who's lying to you,
right,
who says where they think you want to hear,
right,
where they were. They hopefully will actually tell you the truth.
Right. Right.
So it's all about creating the environment and the relationship based on love and concern and care,
right, and
not based on fear.
Yeah, and I think the other really important piece of it that he brought up was that your brain logs in these memories, and so that if you have that experience as a child, then the first place your brain goes back to is what you remember and how your parents dealt with a situation and how you've been in that situation before. So you want to make sure that when you are dealing with your children, that you're creating the kind of memories where they can go back to a safe place in their memory and deal with their problems from that place,
right,
and not from a place of fear.
So their memory is, I didn't follow the family rules last time, and my parents didn't freak out.
Right.
We sat down and we talked about it rationally, and we came up with a plan for next time. Right. I remember that, so I'll make sure that I tell the truth. I'll make sure that I do a better job next time.
And not only talk about it rationally, but also say, and my mom, she looked pretty tired that next morning because she'd been up all night, and she said, It was a hard evening for me to be waiting for my firstborn to come back in the door safely. My mind went all sorts of places.
I was worried.
I was worried. So it's
scared.
hard. It's hard for me when you don't come home, as opposed to getting into an argument, which in my world I would call a power struggle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's the power struggle is fear based too. It's sort of like, I want to be right. I want to win. I want to convince you with my loud voice, my animated face, my finger pointing, my whatever, and my infinite wisdom. Right. As opposed to just trying to find a way to say, let's really be real. And I remember talking about that with my stepsons when they were younger. Like, what would it be like if I lied to you? Oh yeah, there's plenty of turkey for turkey sandwiches when you get home from school. No, it's the refrigerator's empty. What would that? How would that help our relationship if everything I said to you was a lie? And you're standing here saying, "No, I didn't smoke dope last night. Nope. I wasn't with that bad kid. Nope. It just doesn't work to build a relationship that's one that you can fall back on, know, and expect the truth from. So yeah, it's interesting.
And I think that's kind of what we're about here is trying to help families create the kind of bonds and experiences that will stand them in good stead through the challenging, difficult times as life goes on, and know that they can turn to their family members and not worry that they're going to be judged and that they're going to have to lie in order to avoid a difficult conversation or something like that.
Right. Absolutely.
Because 12-year-olds become 16-year-olds, become 32-year-olds, and you want to have a great relationship with your kids even when they're no longer children.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. That reminds me of an earlier conversation we had with somebody where you want your children to change and develop, and you're looking forward to what's my 16-year-old, son going to be like when he's 16, and what's he going to be like when he gets married? What's he going to be like? You want them to grow and change and blossom, but we're not so much interested in having our spouse grow and change and blossom. Oh, right? We've talked about that. It's kind of an interesting thing that can be a sign of health and development, is where your spouse's best champion. Another thing that Dr. Post talked about was the decade of the brain, when it became, which was I guess in the 90s.
Yeah.
It became clear that the brain was not kind of static, and that once a pathway was grooved in the brain, like I'm a neurotic mess when it comes to driving, like I'll never get my license because that those kind of things can change. That there's what they call plasticity, which is a
neuroplasticity. Yep.
Neuroplasticity. That things can actually change. So there's always hope of growth and change and development, and that love poured over that process is a much better growth plate than fear and anger and all that accusatory stuff. It doesn't work as well to help the brain develop and grow.
And fear looks like anger. It looks like depression. It looks like frustration. It looks like worry. I mean, it looks like that's what fear is. And if you boil all of those other emotions down into
those hard negative emotions,
they all boil down to fear.
Right.
And as he writes in his book, and as many of us know, others have written before, perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
And so that's our job as parents.
It all circles back.
Yeah. So, Linda, I would love to actually have you talk a little bit. He was talking about the stress model. Can you remind us a little bit about what happens to the body when we're stressed? And what we can do about it. Yeah.
Stress, it heightens your adrenaline and your cortisol. A lot of people have a hard time losing weight. Weight loss is a big topic for most people. In my work is that most people, I would say, do always want to talk about weight loss at some level. And so if you're stressed all the time and you're coming from that stressful place, or as Dr. Crawford talked about, the lower part of your brain, as Bryan Post would say, Dr. Post, that it's, that's not a love-based approach. It would be more fear-based, right? So we're raising the cortisol, and cortisol just helps your body hang on. We won't go into all the science of it, but your body's going to hold on to fat for various reasons. So if you're always in that stress state, you're going to really have a hard time losing weight, because your body's going to...
you're fighting it.
You're fighting it all the time, yeah. Yeah. So literally, without changing your diet, if you can learn some, practice some techniques or strategies to reduce the stress in your life, and the way that you approach things with your kids, and it doesn't become a stressful situation because you've approached it differently, you can bring that stress down, and actually you might find that you lose some weight, believe it or not, without even changing your diet. Seriously.
That would be
Yeah.
good.
That's amazing. I wasn't gonna correct you, but I was gonna jump in and say, well, you can't reduce the stress, but you can reduce your response to it.
Right.
But then you just said right on the heels of it, if you have a more productive conversation with your child, you will reduce the stress. So it's not like everything in life goes away when you're doing stress management techniques. Like, yes, the bills still pile up, or yes, college applications are coming up, or the mother-in-law needs to recuperate from a long surgery in your home, or whatever it might be. Those things might be real, but how we respond to it is just so key. How we can reduce that.
Well, it always comes back to, are you responding to stress or are you reacting to stress? And
living on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Live on purpose. We're going to have to make that a tagline, right?
Yeah.
So the reacting is what you do when you're not thinking, when you just allow the fight or flight part of your brain to take over and you react, and that's where you raise your stress and you raise your cortisol level. And then Bryan was talking to us about, instead of that, if you engage the front part of your brain, you actually release the hormone oxytocin,
Yes.
which reduces cortisol.
Yes.
So by intentionally choosing to respond instead of react, you are reducing your cortisol and increasing your oxytocin.
Right.
And so this is all stuff that's relatively new for me. I'm still trying to figure it out. I know
Right.
he has co-written a book about oxytocin, and on his website he recommends a couple of other books about it as well.
Oxytocin is such a key element in our life. It is something. It's another way people talk about it is a pleasure hormone.
It's called the love hormone.
Love hormone, the pleasure hormone. When you snuggle, you get a hit of oxytocin. Snuggle with somebody you care about. You get, obviously, how could you snuggle with anybody you don't care about? But anyway, you get a hit of oxytocin, and oxytocin is a wonderful feeling, and a lot of people get that by taking oxycodone or other addictive drugs. And there's something to being self-medicated, like my stress level or my anxiety level or my, I just want some peace. I just want to feel good. I just don't want to feel this agitated. People sometimes reach for something outside of themselves and try to ingest it. How about trying some stress management where you release that chemical anyway, because the body wants to release that chemical with you, for you. He actually called oxytocin the anti-stress hormone.
He did, and he also said it was a learned response in the brain.
Yeah.
So it's a learned response. So again, it goes back to that memory and how the situation was dealt with. So if you can learn that talking to your parents, for example, is not going to be a bad experience, no one's going to kill you, and then no one's going to be screaming at you, but your parents care, and you want to show your child that I want to know why you're afraid in this situation to tell me everything that's going on. So I thought that was really interesting too. It's a learned response in the brain. So we have to keep creating those experiences that create those positive memories that make that experience, so that it doesn't raise cortisol. It raises our oxytocin instead.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff.
We have a responsibility as parents. We have a responsibility to take a look inside and not get driven by these unconscious drives as well. Do you know what I mean? Like when you say, as parents, we really want to have our children have a lovely home. And I'm like, I don't know that my parents wanted that. They wanted me to shut up, or they wanted me to do what to just like sit down and eat normally, or whatever it was. It wasn't that they were looking to educate me, or that's my impression. I don't know that they were looking to raise me. I think that they were looking for peace and quiet, or just get the A's and stop, as opposed to, so what's getting in the way of you getting some A's? Nobody talked to me like that as a child.
I see.
Doesn't mean they didn't think it. They just didn't know how to.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. So one of the things that I find is key about what we're doing with Mighty Married Moms, and what I'm doing with my life as a human being, and what I'm doing with my life as a marriage educator, is to step back and live on purpose. Is to take another look in and to be conscious and say, what kind of a parent do I want to be? Again, Dr. Crawford's work. What kind of a mother do I want to be? What kind of a woman do I want to be? What kind of a friend do I want to be? And to really make some decisions about that, and to say, I'm going to take some responsibility, and I want to be the kind of mom that's not screaming all the time.
Right. Who do I want to be?
Who do I want to be?
What's my identity?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Absolutely.
So we're just about out of time. What I'm going to do is encourage you, listener, viewer, to raise your oxytocin level today and every day by doing something that will do it. For instance, go hug your kids and hug your spouse, and just do something that reduces your stress and cortisol and increases your oxytocin. So that would be a great takeaway for you today. And if you raise your own oxytocin by hugging your kids, guess what? You're going to raise theirs too. And you will reduce their stress and increase the trust and the love that you have as a family. So
give them a compliment, anything, right, that makes you feel good.
Make them some healthy brownies.
Healthy brownies are good. Healthy brownies are
We'll
good.
just tell Linda that we're making healthy brownies.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This is Mighty Married Moms. We encourage you, please, to subscribe on iTunes and please share with your friends and family. That's how we get the message out, is when you share. And as you can tell from our conversation with Dr. Bryan Post today, we have some fabulous information, some terrific guests, and we need you to share and spread the message so that we can create families that love each other, support each other, and bond together throughout our whole country. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community,
where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.